Stuka Joe here. Today we're going to take a look at, well, 3 turns of the War of the Triple Alliance. I did a video a few days ago, but the quality was so poor that I decided to make it again. So we will be filming the War of the Triple Alliance, and I want to check if the chat box is working. So just want to make sure I can see chats here. So let me just write something down. Here we are. And let's see if I can see it here. Okay. So we got the game set up. This is a 2-player game. A game that is designed by Pedro Iñaki Martinez. This is a Spanish designer. I met him at the 3rd BellotaCon in 2020. He was showing this game and others. And it's been published by NAC Wargames. And NAC Wargames is a Spanish publisher. And it's a relatively new Spanish publisher. This is the first game that they published that is from an original design. They have published, I think they published Successors and some other game last year also. So they started last year, and they're seeking distribution here in the United States. And as soon as I have any information as to that, I'll be posting it here. But today we'll be playing 3 turns of the game. And let's see, one more thing here before we start. Yeah, I got the wrong chat box here, so let's get the right chat box this time on the screen. I got to start again here. I'll be in a jiffy. Okay. You got Peter. You enjoy the presentation. I appreciate it, Peter. I got the chat box now, the correct one, and nope, not yet. I'm working here on the chat. Here it is. Okay, now I can see the chat. That's great. Okay, so this is a 2-player game. It's not a complicated game. It's a simple game in the sense of the rules. The rule book, I think, has like 10 pages of rules, well illustrated. And this game has been published in English and also in Spanish. And when you get the game, you get both. You get components in English and Spanish. The map board is printed in English on one side, the side that you are seeing here, and in Spanish, the back side. And then there's 2 sets of books. One set in English, you get a rule book, and there's also a companion book that has about 16 pages, and I think the rule book also has 16 pages, but not all of it is rules. The rules are pretty straightforward. I have no problem with it. And we'll be playing and rolling the dice. The game brings these chunky dice here, you see here. be using this little machine here when rolling dice. So see how that turns out. And the game is for 2 players. You got the red pieces are the Paraguayans, and the blue pieces are the Brazilians. And the way this war occurred or came about, this was in 1864, lasted 6 years, was that Paraguay, which you see here, occupies a central position in the map. Paraguay had an alliance with Uruguay. You see Uruguay down here. It also has some red pieces at the beginning of the game, around 3 units. And Brazil invaded Uruguay. And you see at the beginning of the game, you see that there's a Brazilian force there at Jaguarão, 3 units. And those are the units that are set to invade Uruguay. And at the beginning of the game, this card is in effect. This is like a starting card that lays down like special rules for the first turn. Brazil invades Paraguay. So here the allied player can only move Brazilian units. They cannot enter Paraguayan or Argentinian spaces. And you're going to get only Brazilian reinforcements in the first turn. So the way historically it happened was that Brazil invaded Uruguay, and Paraguay didn't have a border with Uruguay. As you see there, Paraguay has a border with Argentina and Brazil. And to get to Uruguay, would have moved in this direction, for example. They have to traverse Argentina. So the Paraguayans asked the Argentinians for permission to enter, and the Argentinians said no. And we got Aranubis, how you doing? Nice to see you. So the Argentinians said no. So what did the Paraguayans do? They declared war on the Argentinians. So now they're at war with Brazil and Argentina. And of course, Brazil swallowed up Uruguay. And a friendly government was installed, and then Uruguay declared war on Paraguay. And then that's where you have the triple alliance between Uruguay, Argentina, and and Brazil. So that's the mess that Paraguay got into. And as a result of this war, Paraguay lost about 70% of its male population. So it was very devastating, specifically for Paraguay. But at the beginning of the game, and this is one thing that is interesting, we have the Dungeon Master Desterrado. Nice to see you. He's from Spain. The interesting thing about this game is that, of course, both sides play very differently. The Paraguayans are, you could say, they're mostly mobilized at the beginning of the game. They have their best units out. Let's take a closer look at the situation here. Here we see, for example, the Paraguayans have their largest army here in Itapiru, 6 units, and 6 is the maximum number of units you can stack. And they have 4 units here in Encarnacion. Now let's take a closer look at the units in Itapiru here. We'll zoom in. And there's 6 units there. And the best units in the game are those that show that number 3. The 3 is the combat factor in the game. And combat is very simple. Units are paired with enemy units, and you roll a die. And if you roll equal or less than the combat factor, you score a hit on the opposing unit. So you see that the Paraguayans have 2 3-strength units. And there's not a lot of those units in the game. So they have this huge stack here in Itapiru, and they have various choices as to what to do. They want to knock out at least Argentina or Brazil out of the game before things get out of hand, right? So they can move south, And here you see the forces that the Argentinians have are very weak. They have one unit here in Corrientes and another one here in Cacatí. In this game, you score victory points mostly by conquering spaces that have a card symbol. So for example, if the Paraguayans take San Cosme, then the Paraguayans draw a card from their deck here, and let's just say they captured San Cosme, and this card will show you an event and a victory point value, and at the end of the Paraguayan turn you will score the number of victory points, and then if you have from the cards that you have, which can be one or more, you choose one to affect the event. So events in this game occur at the end of the turn. Each player chooses one of the cards from his hand, and that card which will affect the event is placed here in the card in use space. And if the player had any other cards, they would go to the discard pile. So that's how cards are obtained, and cards are the main source of victory points in this game. Now, of course, the allied player has his deck of cards, and also cards serve as the clock for the game. So now we have the designer with us today, Pedro Iñaki. Nice to see you. So we're going to play 3 turns. If I screw up anything, let me know. Saludo, Pedro Iñaki. So the Brazilians have their deck, and the cards also serve as the game's clock. Each turn, players will obtain cards by conquering spaces, but even if they don't conquer a single space in a turn, in the last phase, they always draw a card. So cards are going to be spent from the event card deck, and once that event card deck is exhausted, is done, the game ends there, and the player with the most victory points wins. And if they're tied, well, then the result is a draw. But the game can end before. There's various ways in which the sides can win or lose without having to draw the last card. So let's take a look at how the game can be won or lost without reaching that last card. So here we see, for example, the 3 Paraguayan leaders. In this game, there are each side has 3 leader counters, and leaders, what they do in the game, they allow you to attack an enemy space. In order to attack, you have to place your units in the same space as the enemy units, and you have to assign a leader. Now, the leaders don't have ratings or anything. They just allow you to attack. Now, the leaders are lost if the side that attacked with the leaders loses its last combat unit in that specific battle. If that side loses all its units and it had a leader, the leader is captured. So let's say, for example, that we have Estigarribia here, and he is captured. What happens is that the allies get 5 victory points. And if Caballero is captured, then the allies get 3 victory points. Now, what happens if Solano Lopez, who is the president of Paraguay, is captured? The allies win the game. So this is a way that the allies can win. If Solano Lopez is in a battle, obviously, he could be attacking or defending, but you don't want to leave him in a space where he's vulnerable. But let's say he is leading an attack and his side got wiped out, Solano Lopez is captured, and that's the end of the game. Paraguay loses. So Paraguay can't be using Solano Lopez, willy-nilly all the time, because it's a dangerous affair. But you will see that Paraguay has the burden of attack at the beginning. They have the advantage at the beginning, so it's always a dilemma. How much do I want to push my luck and use Solano Lopez at the beginning of the game? Now here we see the the Allied leaders. The Allies have 3 leaders. These first 2 are historically Brazilian leaders, Osorio and Caxias, and in the event that their army is wiped out and they are captured, then each of those leaders provides victory points for Paraguay, 3 Osorio and 5 Caxias. And if the remaining leader, Mitre, is captured, then Argentina abandons the war. We remove all the Argentinian units from the map, and that's the end of the war for Argentina. And so it's also a very significant event if Argentina leaves the war. Okay, so we saw how Paraguay can lose if Solano Lopez is captured. Now let's take a look at another way that the game can be won by the Paraguayans. Okay, the Paraguayans, there's the spaces that you see here. There's spaces that are in capital letters, like you see there, Cerro León. Let's move the camera closer here. And Asunción, right? The spaces that are in capital letters, these are strategic spaces. And these spaces are the entry points for reinforcements, and you receive 1 reinforcement each turn in each of your strategic spaces. So Paraguay, if it holds on to these 2 strategic spaces, each turn will receive 2 reinforcements. Now, I talked to you about that. Also, spaces in this game provide provide cards for the enemy. If Asunción is occupied by the enemy, the Allied player gets 5 victory points and 3 cards. Okay, and if they occupy Asunción in this game, the Paraguayan can move his capital to another, has to move his capital to another area, and then we use this marker here. And we place this marker, and let's say we place it here in Campo Grande, and let's say that later that space is taken by the Allies. Well, the Allies would get 2 victory points, and then the Paraguayan places his 3rd capital, and let's say places it here in San Jose, and let's say it's captured, 1 additional victory point. Then the Paraguayan can place his 4th capital, let's say places it here in San Carlos, and that also gets captured. Finally, the Paraguayan can places a 5th capital marker, and let's say it's placed here and it gets captured. In that case, the Paraguayans lose the game. But on their way to losing 5 capitals, notice that they lost a number of victory points. So that's a way that the Paraguayans can also lose if they lose their 5 capitals. Now, the Paraguayans can win by occupying strategic spaces that belong to the Allies, but it's certain strategic spaces. Let's take a look at the strategic spaces on the map that we have for Brazil. You can see that Brazil are the green spaces. In the north, you have the region of Mato Grosso, and you have, in the south, you have the region here of Rio Grande do Sul. So Brazil is fighting Paraguay on 2 fronts. Now there's strategic spaces in Mato Grosso. There's one. Let's take a closer look here. Here we see the situation at the beginning of the game in Mato Grosso. The strategic space is Cuiabá, and that means that each turn, if Cuiabá has not been captured by the Paraguayans, the Brazilians can enter 1 regular reinforcement there. Now, look at the number of spaces that have cards, symbols, because this is very attractive for the Paraguayans. You have Cuiabá is worth 3 cards if captured. Then you have here Coxim 2, and you have these 3 spaces, 1 each. So you have a total of 5 spaces worth eight cards. So that's going to be 8 victory points, because the minimum victory points, I think there's one card maybe that doesn't give any victory points. So it's going to be around 8 victory points, that area. And of course, if the Paraguayans capture Cuiabá, then that space is no longer eligible to receive reinforcements. Actually, Brazilian reinforcements are reduced by 1. Now, that is the situation in Mato Grosso. Let's take a look and compare what the situation is here in Rio Grande do Sul. Rio Grande do Sul has 2 strategic spaces that you see there. You got Rio Grande and Porto Alegre, and not only are they strategic spaces, these spaces, if any of them are captured by the Paraguayans, it's the end of the game. So it's very tempting also to, let's just push towards Rio Grande do Sul, let's see if we capture one of those spaces and the game is over. But look at the situation in terms of cards that that region gives to the attacker. You just have one in Sao Borja. There's one in Candelaria here that is easy pickings here, that the Paraguayans can easily take here. But there's just another card here in Sao Borja. And remember, we saw in Mato Grosso 8 cards. So this may be a costly campaign for nothing in terms of victory points, and you may fall short and not even reach any of those 2 strategic spaces. Now, so we've seen that Paraguay has 2 strategic spaces, and Argentina has, Brazil has 3. But the alliance also has Argentina. And Argentina, which we will show you now, has 2 strategic spaces. Has the strategic space of Buenos Aires, which you see down here, and has the strategic space of Santa Fe. Now, Buenos Aires, again, if Paraguayan units occupy Buenos Aires, that's the end of the game and they win. But that's going to be a tough proposition. Look where the Paraguayans start. That's a tough proposition. Now, look at the area around Santa Fe. It's pretty attractive, not as attractive as Mato Grosso. Let's zoom out a little bit so you can see. But you have this area here, 4 cards in 3 spaces. And then you have here Yatay and Concordia. So it's pretty attractive in terms of victory points to go this way. This is the area of Entre Rios. Entre Rios means between rivers, because it's between the Paraná and the Uruguay River. You have this area here. So the Paraguayans have to decide where they are going to attack, and they have to be pretty aggressive. They have to take some chances, because the alliance has a total of 5 strategic spaces where they will receive reinforcements each turn. The Paraguayans only 2. And I have here the units that may enter play, so that you have an idea also of another situation, another problem the Paraguayans have. Here we see, for example, the regular Paraguayan units on top that may come in as reinforcements. Notice that none have a strength of 3. You have 2s, 1s, and some have a strength of 0, meaning that those units can't even fire. They're just there to take a hit. So those are the Paraguayan reinforcements. Now, in this game, other reinforcing units may enter play through event cards. And those are the units that have the symbol there in the top left corner of the little red card. So those units may enter through the play of cards, but the regular reinforcements are these units that you see here. Now, when you compare that to the units that for example, the Brazilians can bring into the game. Look at that stack of 3s. They have a lot of 2s, and they have a lot of cavalry. Now, cavalry in this game, the difference between cavalry and infantry is the number of movement points. Cavalry can move 3 spaces, and infantry can move 2 spaces. But as to combat, there's no difference. But that extra space can make a difference. Now, here we see the Argentinian reinforcements. They are mostly 2s. And you got 1 3, but it's a special reinforcement that enters with a card. So that basically is the situation at the beginning of the game. Let's take a quick look at the sequence of play. Okay, the sequence of play. In this game, always the allied player goes first. The first is the transport phase. And what the transport phase means is in this game is the movement of units across spaces that have a main river or coastal spaces. This is like a form of strategic movement, a form of moving units long distances over spaces that have main rivers, like this, like here. So for example, let's suppose that Argentinian units could move, and this unit could be moved through during the transport phase, an unlimited number of friendly areas, and in this case it could reach here, this area there, which is Corrientes. Now the downside is that units that move during the transport phase using this type of movement cannot move in the regular phase. So you cannot attack with these units, because to attack in this game you have to move your units into the same space as the enemy. But this is a very important form of movement, and the Paraguayans have to make use of it as very efficiently. And at the beginning of the game, note that the Paraguayan capital, which is where the Paraguayans will receive their reinforcements each turn, is Asunción, which is on a main river. So those units in Asunción could sail a couple of boxes up north here to Concepción, and then participate there in the Mato Grosso campaign, or they could move south here and go into the Entre Rios area and help out there. Now also there's another section of the map that is connected by the river, and it is this section here. You see at the beginning of the game, the units in Encarnación, the Paraguayans have 4 units, so they're gonna roll over those Argentinians in Candelaria. But in order to be able to use this riverine movement, the Paraguayans would have to take this space here, Apipi, and this Itati space here, as well as San Cosme, and that way they could move, using this riverine movement, units from Concepcion into Itapiru, maybe down south that the Paraguayans are advancing, or up north into the area of Mato Grosso, if that's the focus of the campaign. So see how important that type of movement is. Now, after the transport phase, the next phase that we have is the movement phase. And this is the regular movement. And in this game, as I stated before, you move your units. Cavalry units can move up to 3 spaces, and infantry units can move up to 2. And units that enter a space with enemy units, there has to be a battle. It's going to be mandatory, and you have to bring a leader into that space. And when you bring a leader from the space, you pick the leader either from the leader display box. You just pick the leader up and place it on the stack, or you can pick up the leader from any space that he is already on the map. And then the next phase is the combat phase, where we resolve combat, and combat is resolved here in this battlefield display where we pair up units starting in the number 1 space. We place them in these spaces, and each unit rolls a die. A roll equal or less to their combat factor inflicts a hit on the unit that is across, and that unit is flipped to its reduced side or eliminated if already reduced. And after we solve all the combats, then we proceed to the maintenance phase, which is the last part of the turn here. And let's take a look at the steps of the maintenance phase. In the maintenance phase, we draw a card. So you're always going to get a card. If you occupy a space with a card symbol, you get a card. But at the end of the turn, you get at least a card. You get it here. And then you count the victory points from the cards that you have. You choose a card from your hand that will be in use, meaning that its event will be in effect. And then you take reinforcements, 1 per each strategic space. Or you can do replenishment. Instead of taking a reinforcement, any reduced unit which is in a strategic space, you can flip it to its full strength side. So that is, in a summary, a turn in this game. So we will start turn number 1. So let's take a look here. Okay, good night, Pedro Iñaki. Nice having you. Let's start here with the first turn, and there's an initial card for the allies here, which is like a special turn 1 card. You may only move Brazilian units, and they cannot enter Paraguayan or Argentinian spaces, and only Brazilian strategic spaces may be used for reinforcement or replenishment. So we cannot move Argentinian units, only Brazilian units. And we start with a transport phase. Now, there's no riverine transport that the Brazilians would be able to make. Note that they have an army, a small army here at Uruguayana, and that army could not move this way because this is an Uruguayan space. It has to be a friendly space, and Uruguay right now is at war with Brazil. And there's like nowhere to go this side. So there's not going to be any naval transport. So we now go to the movement phase, and we have the Brazilian army at Jaguarão will move into Cerro Largo. So now we have to pick a Brazilian leader to participate. So we're going to take Osorio here, and we will place him with the stack here. So we will resolve that battle during the combat phase. Now we have to consider whether we're going to move the other Brazilian units. Only Brazilian units can move in the first turn, and the other Brazilian units are these that you see here at Uruguayana. It's a total of 3 units, 7 combat factors. And these guys have to make a decision whether they go south and they try to aid in the conquest of Uruguay. But the conquest of Uruguay is going to be pretty easy because in the next turn, the Uruguayans cannot move. Only the Paraguayans can move. So unless there's a complete disaster in the battle that we're going to have at Cerro Largo, that army of Caxias is going to move into Montevideo. So the army at Uruguayana will just stay put there because that way it closes any path from this huge Paraguayan army here at Itapiru. So that's the movement phase. And now we go to the combat phase, and we are going to resolve the battle. So what I'll do is I'll move the units that you see there. The units that we have here at Cerro Largo, let's move them to the display. And I'm going to place a marker there to denote that that's where the battle's taking place. So we move the units now to the display. The leader has no effect. We place always defending units first. So we always place them from one. The first one in the one box, there's only one. And now we place attacking units. And we're going to match up that defending unit with a 2 unit, because that unit will be firing here, and we don't want damage to be done to the best units there. So the way combat works here is that in this particular situation, the Brazilians will fire first. There are situations where the defender fires first, and this situation, the attacker fires first. And the reason for that is because the unit moved through a brown communication line. These are roads into the battle space. So that means that the attacker will fire first. If the unit had moved, let's say, through a blue communication line, like you see here, this is a minor river, then combat would be simultaneous. And if the attacker would have moved through a main river line, like here from this space here, Concordia to Paysandú, then the defender would fire first. So these main rivers provide an advantage for the defender. So in this case, the attackers will fire first. So we have our Brazilian units. Let's place, we got our cup here, and let's start rolling. We'll use this die here, and the top unit will fire first, and it needs 2 or less. So here we go. And the roll is a 2. So that's a hit, and now the defending unit is reduced. So we reduce the unit, and now the next unit to fire is going to be this unit here. It also needs a 2 or less. So we roll the die, and the result is a 1. So these Brazilians are tough today. And that means that the Uruguayan unit is eliminated. So eliminated units in this game never return. So we will place eliminated unit back in the counter tray. So the Brazilians have won this battle. So we return the Brazilian units to the map. Okay, so we have them here. And they've captured Cerro Largo. Now, every time a unit captures a space that originally belonged to the other player, we place a control marker, and here's a control marker, in that space. Okay, so we place the control marker there, and that's the end of the combat phase. Note that that space was not worth any victory points in terms of capture and cards. So that we finish the combat phase, and now we go on to the maintenance phase. And now the first thing to do in the maintenance phase is that we pick a card for the allied player. So we pick a card from the top of the deck, and it says smallpox spreads. The Paraguayan player must eliminate a Paraguayan unit in Mato Grosso. Now this will be the event if we don't have any other cards. The allied player can play this as an event. But normally in a turn, you will see that you may have 3-4 cards. So you draw an extra card at the beginning of the maintenance phase, and you put it in your hand. And the next step is to score the victory points that you have in your hand. Well, there's only one, so we score 1 victory point for the allied player. So we just advance the victory point marker there. And now we choose the event among the cards that we have in our hand. We only have 1 card. So it says the Paraguayan player must eliminate a Paraguayan unit in Mato Grosso. Let's see if there's any Paraguayan units in Mato Grosso. Here we see Mato Grosso. But the reality is that Mato Grosso, if you can see this line here, this delineates the extent of Mato Grosso. There's no Paraguayan units in Mato Grosso. Notice that there's a Paraguayan space in Mato Grosso. It's actually 2, Fuerte Olimpo and Puerto Esperanza, but no units there. So this event has no effect. And in any event, this was the card that the event was selected, so we place it here in the card in use space. If there would have been other cards that were not selected for the event, they would have been placed here in the discard pile. So that is the end of the allied turn, first allied turn. And now we move to the first Paraguayan. Oh no, not yet. No, not yet. I forgot something. We got to enter reinforcements. Okay, let's get back here. Okay, we got to enter reinforcements, and because of the special turn 1 rule, they can only be Brazilian reinforcements. Brazil has 3 strategic spaces, so now we can pick 3 units and place them, 1 in each strategic space. Okay, we'll take a 3 strength unit, a 2 strength infantry unit, and we'll take one of these cavalry units. So we have 3 units, and we will place here in Puerto Alegre and Rio Grande, we'll place the 3 strength infantry unit and the cavalry unit, each one in a specific space. And then the remaining unit that we have, which is the 2 unit, infantry unit, we will place it here in Cuiabá as a reinforcement. So now we finish the turn, and that's the end of the first allied player turn. Now we move on to the first Paraguayan turn. Dice spinning, yeah. That's a good one. This is more dice spinning than dice rolling. So here we go. The Paraguayans have also a turn 1 initial card. This is a Spanish side, okay. You are second in turn order. The allied player just went, right? We can only move Paraguayan units and enter any space in any country, but only Paraguayan units. We can't move our allied Uruguayans. They are in shock. We can't move them. So we can only move Paraguayan units. And here we see the Paraguayan units that we have. We have our large army here in Itapirú and these units in Encarnacion. The Paraguayans want to open this river line. That's important. So they will be moving all except one of the units from this stack. They will move here into Apipe. So 3 of the 4 units will move into Apipe, right? Oh, before that, let me strike that. Okay, I forgot. We got to do the transport phase first, and the Paraguayans can use transport because they have a unit here in Asunción. So this riverine transport, we can use it either to move up to here, if we want to go into Mato Grosso, or move towards the south, and they could reach, they can't reach Itapirú because they would overstack, but they could be here at Curupaití. And so this particular unit, we will send the unit north into Concepcion. Now this unit, because it moved using strategic movement, well, I'm going to place a red pawn on it just to make sure we don't move it during the regular movement phase. So that's transport for the Paraguayans. They don't have any more riverine movement to make. Now we can concentrate here where we were going to move. And here in Encarnacion, all but 1 unit will move into Apipe. So the Paraguayans still have 1 movement point left, and they captured Apipe, and that gives them 1 card. So we flip a card from the top of the Paraguayan deck, War Atrocity at Acosta New. So this decreases the Allied score by 2 victory points if used as an event and provides 1 victory point. So we will place this in the Paraguayan hand, and we still have 1 movement point for those troops there at Apipe. And now they will enter the space here in Candelaria. And meanwhile, the unit here in Encarnacion will move one space into Apipe and another space here into Ituti. Now let's place a control marker in Apipe before we forget, because Apipe is already under control. So now Itati is the name. Itati also gives the Paraguayans a card. So let's place a control marker there. And now let's pick our second card for the Paraguayans this turn. And it's Native Appeasement. The Paraguayan player places one Guarani special unit on any empty space in Alto Paraní. Okay, Alto Paraní is here. This region over here. So near Mato Grosso. Okay, so that's our second card for the Paraguayans. So we're going to have a battle in Candelaria. Now we have to bring a leader from the Paraguayan leader pool, and we will bring Caballero. And let's place him here. There you go. Okay. So now we moved that force. We have that river almost open. Now we have to see what we're going to do with the troops at Itapiru. They have, obviously, they have various options. They could move this way. And in this game, there's no overruns. Sometimes you'll have to leave a sacrificial unit to stop an army. There's no overrun. So there's no way these troops can overrun this Argentinian unit and then try to fight it out with the Brazilians in the same turn. So we got 6 units here. We're going to divide this stack into 2. And we're going to split our 3s. We got 2 3s, so we'll split the stack into 2 stacks of 7 combat factors each. And we will move one stack into San Cosme, and that occupies that space, and that is worth a card. So we signify control of San Cosme, and we pick a card. That'll be our 3rd card for the Paraguayans. So let's pick the card. And it says, popular support for Lopez. The Paraguayan player places one Reserva special unit in Asunción and another in Rosario. Paraguay must control both spaces. So this is a possible event that we may declare at the end of the turn. We have 3 cards for the Paraguayans so far. And this stack still has 1 more movement point. So it will move here into Cacatí. Okay, so now we're going to have a battle there, and we have to bring a leader to the battle. So who's going to be the leader? Well, we're going to bring Estigarribia. He's going to be the leader, so we place him there with the units at Cacatí. And we still have the situation at Itapiru. So the forces at Itapiru have not moved yet. And if we attack with them, we have to include the president. But I think they have a good chance if they attack Corrientes, but not this way, not via the river. If they attack Corrientes here via this main river, the Argentinians will fire first. So they don't want to take that chance. So what we will do is we will move this stack one space into San Cosme, and then another space into Corrientes. So there we go. And now we have to bring Solano into the fray. And we place Solano with the Paraguayans here. So that's the movement in that area. Now let's zoom out and let's check other areas for other movements that the Paraguayan units can still make. We haven't moved any forces into the vicinity of Mato Grosso, so it's time now to do so here. Mato Grosso is very attractive because of that inordinate number of cards in that area. So we can't move the unit that used naval transport, but here there's two units here in Concepcion. So we're going to move both units into this space here in Puerto Esperanza. And we still have our cavalry units. We will move this cavalry unit just to block that Brazilian unit there. And then there's another cavalry unit that we have in Cerro León, which is our second, Paraguayan second strategic space. I like to move that unit always to a river space so that in the next turn, if things are needed in a specific front, you can move that unit navally. So this specific unit that you see here is the cavalry unit. It'll move 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3, here to Rosario. And that's going to be all the movement for the Paraguayans. I think they moved all the units. Can't move any more. A very aggressive stance. All 3 of their leaders will be participating in battles. Now these battles should be walkovers, but you never know. So the attacker decides in which order the battles will take place. We'll resolve first the battle here in Candelaria. So let's move the units over to the battle board. And we place our marker there. Okay, so here we have the battle board. And we've placed the sole Argentine unit. We'll do the same thing, the Paraguayan, the best unit, so it doesn't come into contact. These units can fire, obviously, at the one in front, and these two can fire at any unit, so they'll also be firing at the lone Argentinian unit. So here we go. Let's use the red die here. We roll for the top Paraguayan unit, and it needs 2 or less. And the roll is a 1. So that's 1 hit on the Argentinian unit. Now the next unit, this unit, rolls and needs 2 or less. That's a miss. And then we roll with the bottom unit that needs a 3 or less. And the roll is a 4. So that's a miss. So now the Argentinians fire back. And they need a 1. And they have to stay for 1 round. You can't go start running immediately. So they have to stay for 1 round. So here we go. Roll for the Argentines. And the roll is a 5, so they miss. So now we go to the second round. And of course the Paraguayans are going to stay. They're not going to leave. So we roll with the top unit. And the roll is a 6, misses. The second unit, the roll is a 6, it misses. And the third unit, will it survive? It's also a 6. I wonder if this is really rolling. 3 6s. So now the Argentines say, you know, we've stuck here for a while. We are leaving. So that unit is still alive. So we place the unit here in Corrientes. And we place also the Paraguayan units. And I wonder if that die is actually rolling. I can use smaller dice. I don't know. So we have the unit there. That's the battle. Now the Argentines have to withdraw. They can only withdraw into controlled spaces, so that's a no-brainer. It has to be Sao Nicolau. So they withdraw there. And the Paraguayans have control of Candelaria. So Candelaria, we place a Paraguayan control marker there. And now they have to take another card. You see, they got a lot of cards in this turn. Take a card. So let's take another card. And this one is Argentinian War Protests. The Mitre leader may not be used this turn. That's 1 victory point. So now the Paraguayans have 4 cards in their hand during this turn. And now we're going to resolve one of the battles here in the Entre Rios area. We'll leave Solano, the president, for last, just in case disaster strikes. We can see a combat example here. So let's take a look at the situation at Caucatí, where we have 3 Paraguayan units attacking a sole Argentinian unit. The movement was through a regular road, so the Paraguayans will be attacking first. And of course, we place the sole defending unit in the space there. And we place now the Paraguayan units. And this time I'm going to roll with a smaller die, just to make sure that this is a dice roller, not a dice spinner. So here we go. Let's zoom in a little bit more. Okay, we roll with the top Paraguayan unit, 2 or less. And the roll is a 4. That's a miss. The next Paraguayan unit needs 2 or less. And the roll is a 2. So that's a hit, and this unit is reduced. And now the third Paraguayan unit needs 3 or less. And the roll is a 3. So that Paraguayan unit is eliminated. So we place the Paraguayan unit in the counter tray. And we return the victorious, place that Argentinian unit in the counter tray, I should say. And we place the victorious Paraguayan units in the map here in Cacatí. Cacatí is not worth any cards, so Paraguayans don't receive extra cards for that. And now we go to the battle here at Corrientes. And this space was entered on purpose by the Paraguayans through this connection in order to avoid them having to take Argentinian fire first. So we deploy the defending unit on the map, on the battlefield display, and now we place the Paraguayans. The leader will be up there. Same, I always use the same order there. So here we go. And now we roll for the top Paraguayan unit at the top. It needs 2 or less. The roll is a 3, that's a miss. The next unit needs a 2 or less. And the roll is a 6, it misses. Yeah, it's rolling now. And the third unit, let's see if it can do anything. Also a 6, 3 misses. And now come the Argentines. They need 2 or less for a hit. And the roll is a 1, and they hit. The top Paraguayan unit is reduced. So the Paraguayans now say, well, yeah, we're going to stay. And we have the top unit that needs a 1 to hit. And the roll is a 4. The next unit needs a 2 or less. Misses. And the bottom unit, the Argentines will survive no matter what. Another miss. So now the Argentines say, well, discretion is the better part of valor, so the Argentines will withdraw. So that means that the Argentines in Corrientes survived the Paraguayan onslaught. Lopez shouldn't be too happy. And so now they have to retreat. They could retreat north to this space here, Fuerte Timbó, but they would just be isolated from the rest of the Argentine units. And at the beginning of the game, the Argentines have to stick together because there's not many of them. So they will retreat here into Riachuelo. And now we place a Paraguayan control marker here in Corrientes, and we pick a card for the Paraguayans. So Paraguayans, this will be the 5th card in the turn. Smallpox spreads in Mato Grosso. The allied player must eliminate a Brazilian unit in Mato Grosso. 1 victory point. This is a possible good candidate for an event because the Paraguayans they want to take Mato Grosso. So that's the 5th card. And that's the end of the combat phase. Okay, so now we go into the maintenance phase. And now the Paraguayans receive 1 card because you always receive 1 card at the beginning of the maintenance phase. And this card is Brazilian, here we go, Brazilian weapons seized. Brazil may only receive 1 new unit as reinforcements or replenish 1 reduced strength unit. Boy, that's a good card. And this is worth 2 victory points because that really, this deprives Brazil of 2 reinforcements. So that's our 6th card. And now we add up the number of victory points from the cards. And so let's see, we got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 victory points. So we move the victory point marker here to the number 7 box. And that's 7-0. And now the Paraguayan player has to choose which card to play. And this is a tough decision because you want to maximize the event here. This looks like a good candidate because it will deprive Brazil now in a time of need, especially up there in Mato Grosso, with two reinforcing units. And here we have smallpox. The allied player would eliminate a Brazilian unit in Mato Grosso. This is not bad, but there's Brazilian units with a strength of 1 in Mato Grosso, which are kind of puny, so it's not so good. Mitre may not be used in the next turn. This would deprive the allies from conducting 3 attacks next turn. They could only do 2. Okay. And here the Paraguayan places a Reserva. These are 2 1-strength units in Asunción and another in Rosario. This is nothing to write home about. Native appeasement. The Paraguayans can place a Guarani special unit in Alto Paraná, which is right now a little removed from the action. So this is not something. And here we would reduce the allied score 2 victory points, but they don't have any victory points right now. So it's really between these 2 cards here. The reinforcement may only receive 1 reinforcement or eliminating a unit in Mato Grosso. So this, well, Mato Grosso, they can eliminate a number 1 unit, which is nothing great. So it's going to be this one. Brazilian weapons seized. So they can only receive 1 new unit as a reinforcement or replenish 1 unit. So in order for us to remember that, we place that card here in the card in use space. And the remaining 5 cards, those go here in the discard pile. And now we remove this marker. That Paraguayan unit can move in the next turn. That was the one that was transported by river transport. So that's the end of the first turn of the game. And Paraguay is in full swing. Notice that Solano is there. I mean, Solano, in theory, if an army comes and attacks his space and eliminates all his units, that's the end of the game. But really the Argentines don't have any forces in sight. So during the movement phase, Paraguayans can move Solano back to the display if they would want to. So now we go to the Brazilian Allied transport phase. And now the Argentinians can move, and the Argentinians can avail themselves of river transport. They have that unit there in Buenos Aires, and they will be receiving at the end of the turn one unit there and one unit in Santa Fe. So that unit can move using riverine movement up here, and it depends where they want to make a stand. Do they want to make a stand here at Riachuelo? Because they could only move 3 units there at Riachuelo. So let's do that. We'll move that Argentinian unit here at Riachuelo, and to denote that it cannot move, because during the movement phase, place a control marker there. So that's the riverine movement for the Argentines. The Brazilians could do some riverine movement also, but they would be out of the way of that Paraguayan force, and probably they don't want to do that. So the Brazilians are probably going to stay there for now. They're not going to use any riverine movement. So that's the end of the transport phase. Now we go to the Allied movement phase, a regular movement phase. And of course, here come the Brazilians in Cerro Largo. They move here into Florida. They occupy Florida, so we place a control marker there. And now the Brazilians will be attacking Montevideo. There's already a leader with them, so that's the leader that will be doing the attack. So that's the movement of that unit. The Brazilians have some reinforcements that they need to move up. So this infantry unit moves 2, and the cavalry unit moves 3 spaces, as shown there. And now they have to make a decision what to do with the forces at Uruguayana here. They have 3 units. If the Paraguayans attack during the next turn, it is also with 3 units. So that's going to be a close battle. That could be a bloody affair. But the Paraguayans could get reinforcements. They could reinforce that battle with this unit. So it would be a 4-3 affair. And there's no more help coming for the Brazilians. They're going to have to stay there and hold the fort, because things are getting bad over here in this flank. But that Argentine unit can resist 1 more turn. So they're gonna stay put there. So let's take a look now at the situation around Mato Grosso. Here we see the situation in Mato Grosso. The Paraguayans are about to capture Albuquerque, which is worth 1 card there. They have 2 units. So the Brazilians can offer some resistance there by placing these 2 units here. But the Paraguayans would fire first. So, do we want to make battle there? Or do we practically just put 1 unit there to soften them up, and then we fight at Corumbá? But our reinforcement we won't be able to concentrate all Brazilian forces here in this turn, because the reinforcement comes at the end of the turn. So what we will do is we'll move both Brazilian units here to Albuquerque. And there's no way that the Paraguayans can take Cuiabá on this turn. So that will be all the movement, and that's the end of the movement phase. So now we go to the combat phase. And the only combat situation on the board is that here in Asunción. So let's place a marker there and move the units to the board. So let's place them on the board. And in this case, there's only 1 Paraguayan unit, and we place the Brazilian units, And I'll use the same little tactic to protect the threes. So here we go. So now let's roll. This attack was across a regular communication line, so the Brazilians fire first. So this doesn't look good for the Sol Paraguayans. Sol Uruguayans, I say. So here we go. And the top unit needs a 2 or less, and the roll is a 1. So that's a hit on the Uruguayan unit, and look what happens. The Uruguayan unit only has one side, so it is eliminated. There's not a lot of will to fight here. So the Uruguayan unit is eliminated. Place it in the counter tray, and the Brazilians have captured Montevideo, and this brings a lot of effects now into play. So the Brazilians capture Montevideo. The first thing is Montevideo is worth 2 cards, but there's a special rule as to the conquest of Uruguay that when the Brazilians capture Montevideo, this is what happens. All spaces still not under Allied control are treated as if they had been automatically conquered by the Allied player, and the player gets any cards these spaces provide as bonuses. So the Allies will get the two cards for Montevideo, and they also get 1 card here for Mercedes, and they don't get this card because there's still a unit there. So they get 3 cards, and what else? The entire country of Uruguay changes sides, and its spaces on the map are now friendly to the Allied side. The Allied player removes all Allied control markers, and therefore, if the Paraguayan player occupies a space in Uruguay, they place a Paraguayan control marker, but do not receive any cards as bonuses, and that's because the cards in Uruguay are blue. And finally, the Allied player could use now coastal and main river spaces in Uruguay to transport units, and those are the effects. So we start by giving to the Allies. The Allies get 3 cards. So here we go. First card is popular support in Rio Grande. Paraguayan player must add 1 random discarded card to their event card deck. Shuffle the event card deck. Okay, so that means this delays the end of the game by adding 1 more card to the Paraguayan deck. Now we go to the second of 3 cards. Native appeasement. The Allied player may place the Cadihueo and Terena special units on any empty space in the Alto Paraná region. And the third card, here we go, war effort in Brazil. Paraguayan player must add 2 random discarded cards to their event card deck. So this is very similar to the other one. And each of these cards is worth 1 victory point. Okay. So now all spaces in Uruguay are friendly to the Allied player, so we can remove this. The only space that is friendly to the Paraguayan player is this one, where there's still units loyal to the Paraguayans there. So that's the only space. So that's the end of the combat phase. And now we move on to the maintenance phase for the Allied player, and we start by picking a card. So I get a card, draft instituted. The Allied player places 2 Guardia Nacional special units in Buenos Aires, and this one's worth 2 victory points. So now we add the number of victory points in the cards in the Allied player hand. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 victory points. So the marker is in the number 1 box. So now the marker moves up to the number 7 box. And the score is tied, 7-7. And now the Allied player has to choose what event will take place. So let's take a look at the alternatives. Paraguayan player adds 2 random discarded cards to their event deck. This would make the game longer. which means that, time is on the Allied side. And here the Allied player can place these two special units on any empty space in Alto Paraná. Alto Paraná, this would effectively place units behind Paraguayan lines. So this is a good candidate. The Paraguayan adds one randomly discarded card to their shuffle deck. So this one is very similar to this one, but this one added two cards. And here we have the draft instituted. The Allied player places two Guardia Nacional units in Buenos Aires. This is a very good card because those reinforcements are always sorely needed for the Argentinians. So it's between placing these two indigenous units with a strength of 1 behind Paraguayan lines in the Alto Paraná region. They could serve as guerrillas. Let's take a look at that situation. Here we see Alto Paraná. You see it there. You see the frontier here, Alto Paraná. So these units could be placed in any empty space in Alto Paraná. So they're behind this Cerro Corá unit, and they would be within striking distance. It would be 2 turns to threaten Cerro León. Now this means that the Paraguayans would have to guard against these units. So it's an interesting situation. And the other event would place 2 Argentinian units here in Buenos Aires. And those would take a while to get here because the next turn is a Paraguayan turn. But Paraguay may want to push south now before those units get there. So I'm gonna leave it to a die roll here. So the indigenous units behind lines is going to be a 1 to 3, and 4 to 6 the Argentinian event card. So here we go, and it's going to be the indigenous units. So we will place those. So this will be the event. Where is it? Okay, here is the event. This will be the event. Native appeasement. So we place the other cards in the discard pile. And we can place the Carihueo and Terena special units on any empty space in Alto Paraná. So let's locate those units. Here we see that the Carihueo and Terena. Carihueo and Terena here. Okay. So now we place them in any empty spaces in Alto Paraná. In any empty space in Alto Paraná. So I'm going to put them in one space. Okay, we want them to be able to defend themselves. So we're going to place them here in San Carlos. There'll be a something, give the Paraguayans something to worry about. And because this was the card that was played, we place it here in the cards in use box. And that's the end of the second Allied player turn. Now it's the Paraguayans' second turn. Oh yes, you're right. I skipped the Paraguayan reinforcement phase. See, that's a great thing about we can do that now. Yes, I skipped the Paraguayan reinforcement phase. So let's do that now. Thanks, Justin. Appreciate it. Yeah. Okay, the Paraguayans will pick 1 infantry and 1 cavalry unit. And they can only go 2 spaces. Yeah. So the cavalry will go at Cerro León. So now it's not so easy for the Brazilian indigenous forces, but you got to still guard Cerro León. So thanks, Justin. Appreciate it. So now we go to the third Allied turn, third Paraguayan turn. And that's a situation here. they can, with some luck, they can take out that Brazilian army before it reinforces. There's 2 good units coming their way. It's a pretty risky move, but it would be, you got a 3 and 2 2s, that's 7 plus 2. That would be 9. 9 against 7. This is very close, but the Paraguayans fire first, so maybe that chance won't come again. And down here, the Paraguayans may want to push. And addition to that, we still have the units here. Here we could assign Lopez Solano to take care of the garrison at San Nicolao, because that's a low-risk operation. Okay, so let's start first with the Paraguayan naval transport. Things are developing well in the south, and we probably want to move that reinforcement from Asunción. The Paraguayans have 2 units that we've completely failed to talk about here. They have 2 units here in Curupaití. So these units, we should start moving them south too. So let's take a look at what the options are north. North, by river movement, you can only reach Concepcion. And that campaign will need some sustaining, but I think that's why the Paraguayans will have this cavalry unit, will be able to move 3 spaces, will not be able to join the attack. This attack would be risky because it's 2 Paraguayan units, but through a river line, meaning that fire will be simultaneous. So that would be up for grabs. But again, Paraguay, they have to take chances in this game. Okay, so let's move by river. That unit in Asunción, we'll move it here to Concepcion to sustain the attack during the other turns. So we'll place here a pawn. Any other riverine movement? Well, now this river is open here. This river here is open. So we could reinforce the drive down south here, but we want to also, as the Paraguayans, we want to apply pressure here so that the Paraguayans have to worry themselves here. So, but we will send 1 unit from Candelaria via naval movement. They would still have, they will have 2 units left. They need, we'll send a 2-strength unit. We will send it via river movement here, all the way to San Cosme there. So that unit moves using riverine movement, and we will signify it here. So that, make sure we don't move it in the movement phase, but that unit will be needed there. So that's going to be all our riverine movement. And now we will move through regular movement. Now we have to think about how many battles we're going to have, because if we have 3, Solano's going to have to participate. But he doesn't have to participate in this one, though. We can switch him to the other, to another space. So let's begin by moving here. The units here will move in Candelaria into São Nicolás. So we'll leave the leader in Candelaria. Now we bring Solano, which was in Corrientes. We'll bring him into São Nicolás. Okay. The game has optional rules for more realistic leader rules, but these, I'm using the basic rules. And now we will move the units here in corrientes. The only downside here is that we're going downriver. We're attacking first. Here we would be fired on first. That's the only bad downside about this. But it would apply pressure on the Argentinians. They don't have much coming up river, so we're going to move this army here into Corrientes. We'll have a battle there. Okay. And we will bring Caballero, who was at Candelaria, there. Okay. And now we have Estigarribia. Estigarribia will fall upon Uruguayana. So, here we go. Uruguayana. And now we want to bring, here Cacatí is controlled by the Paraguayans, so make sure. Okay. So now we're going to bring this unit at Ituti through Cacatí and also into the battle at Uruguayana. So there is a movement. Okay, so we have 3 battles. We have to move more units. We have the units that are in Curupaití. We want to move them downriver. So these are going to move here. They could also move here and still support 2 attacks. So they're going to move into San Cosme. These 2 units, I didn't show you that, okay. These 2 units here in Curupaití will move into San Cosme. Oh, they're there, okay. And we have movement to take care of in the north. That means we won't have a battle in the north because we have our 3 battles in the south. But that's okay because we can concentrate more units in the north. So we have here the unit in Concepcion will move into Puerto Esperanza. So that strengthens our units there. The one that moved through river movement has to stay put here. And we have this unit in Rosario, can move 3 spaces. So let's move that unit to Iguitami there. So let's see, there's nothing else to move really. We have to keep an eye on those indigenous forces. We're going to get reinforcements at Cerro León. So let's move that cavalry unit here just to block the path of those units. We don't want them stealing cards from us, you know, the back door there. So that would be all the movement, a lot of movement in this turn for the Paraguayans. And let's see. Now we go to the attacks. We resolve them in any order we want. Let's resolve the one with the president first so that we can rest assured that nothing's going to happen to him because otherwise the game would end. So I think we can resolve that attack. I'll just move the units directly. So we place the sole Argentinian unit and the Paraguayan units. Okay, so this should be a short battle. And that specific battle was through a normal road connection. So the Paraguayans fire first. Here we go. Top unit needs a 2 or less. And the roll is a 5. That's a miss. And the second unit needs a 3 or less. And that unit scores a hit. So the Argentines are eliminated. And we bring back the units on the map. So that was an easy battle there. And we place a control marker at São Nicolás. And that's the end of that battle. Now let's go to the most interesting one is really the one at Uruguayana. So we'll leave that one for last. So let's take a look now at the battle here at Riachuelo, which is not bad either. And that battle at Riachuelo, the problem is for the Paraguayans that they crossed a main river connection. So they're going to receive fire first. So let's place the units on the display. We place the Argentines. Doesn't really matter. They're both 2 strength units. Now we place the Paraguayans. And we're going to place have a number 1 unit. Man, if that number 1 unit scores a hit, it's something. So we have them there. But first, the Argentines fire first here. So this is not a cakewalk, this one. So here come the Argentines. We roll for the top unit, 2 or less. And it's a 6. That's a miss. The second unit needs a 2 or less. And it is a 5. Also a miss. They squandered that chance, the Argentines. So now it's the Paraguayans' turn. The top unit with puny 1 rolls, and it's a 1. It hits the top Argentinian unit. So that gets reduced. So now comes the second Argentine unit, fires at the unit. The second Paraguayan unit fires at the Argentine unit across, needs 2 or less, and gets a 2. So that's another hit, and the Paraguayans are 2 for 2 here. And now we have the third unit. The third unit can choose at which one is going to fire. It's going to fire on the top Argentinian unit, the one in the number 1 box. So here we go. It needs a 3 or less. And that's a 2. Eliminate. This is a completely bloody affair here. It's just went 3 for 3, the Paraguayans here. And now it's the Argentines' turn. And they obviously will retreat because otherwise it's just gonna sacrifice 1 more unit. So the Argentines will retreat from Riachuelo. No losses, no step losses for the Paraguayans here. So here is the situation at Riachuelo. The Argentines have to retreat. They can retreat into Goya or San Roque. And the way things are going, with just 1 unit to be placed in the next Allied turn, they will retreat into Goya to protect that strategic space there, Santa Fe. And of course the Paraguayans have occupied Riachuelo, so we place a control marker there. And that's the end of that battle. So now we go to the most interesting battle here. But this battle, you see here, is interesting because it's more even in terms of numbers. But the Paraguayans entered through Cacatí, so they will be firing first. And that's supposed to be an advantage in this game. So let's place the units on the battlefield display. This is the battle for Uruguayana. So we place first the Brazilians. The Brazilians have 3 units. So we place, there are 3 units there. And now we place the Paraguayans. The Paraguayans have 4 units. So we'll leave that number 3 for last. Have the Paraguayan forces, 4 units. There we go. Paraguayans fire first. Battle for Uruguayana. This one is kind of important here. So let's see how this comes. First Paraguayan unit needs a 2 or less and scores a 1. So that's a hit on the top Argentine unit. So now we go over to the second Paraguayan unit, needs 2 or less. And the roll is a 6, so that one misses. We roll with the third Paraguayan unit, 2 or less. And the roll is a 2, another hit. So it hits the elite Argentine unit, so that is bad. And now we have the fourth Paraguayan unit. Who do you think he's going to fire at? Of course, he's going to fire at the third Argentine unit here to see if he can eliminate that unit. So here we go. It needs 3 or less. And the roll is 4. No, okay. So now the Argentines have to stay 1 round. They can't leave. And so now the top Argentine unit fires across and needs 1. So here we go. And the roll is a 6, not even close. Now the only full-strength Argentinian unit here fires, needs 2 or less. And the roll is a 2, so that is a hit on the second Paraguayan unit, which we now reduce. And now the third Argentine unit, the former elite unit, needs a 2 or less. And the roll is a 5, so that's a miss. And now it's the Paraguayans' turn. And the Paraguayans obviously are attacking here, and they're going to stay. So here we go. The top unit will fire at the, no, I'm sorry, it's the Argentines now that, did I screw up this thing? No. Let me see. I think I did something wrong here. Wait a second. I think I was rolling for, I was rolling for the Argentines, so now it's the Paraguayans who roll. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Let me see here. Okay. Argentines went first. Yep. No, the Paraguayans went first. Argentines rolled first. Now the Paraguayans go again, of course. Okay, now. I was thinking there was a river. There's no river here. So that now it's the Paraguayans' turn. And didn't the Paraguayans just roll? I just forgot who rolled. Who rolled last year? Does anybody, can anybody tell me? I thought the Paraguayans just rolled. So it would be the Argentinians who go now. Let me see. I thought the Paraguayans had just rolled. Paraguayans roll. It's the Argentinians' turn, yeah. But the Argentinians are not attacking. So now the Argentinians can stay or they can leave. So the Argentinians, they're going to get them all. So they're going to leave. The Argentinians will leave. So, boy, that's a strong space there to leave right now. Should they stay or should they, thinking about it. Okay. They have to leave, otherwise they're going to get eliminated. They got just, yeah. Okay, so they're going to leave. So they're going to leave Uruguayana. So we place the Argentinians back, and now we place the Paraguayans also. So now the Argentines have to retreat, and they can retreat to Salto, which is on the way to Buenos Aires. Well, these are not Argentines. These are Brazilians. I'm calling them the Argentines. These are Brazilians. I've been calling them Argentines like for the last 5 minutes. Or they can retreat here to Alegrete. They want to consolidate with their brothers. They can only retreat into one space. You can't split them when they retreat. So they will retreat here into Alegrete. And Uruguayana is worth 1 card for the Paraguayans. So let's give them that card. We flip the card. British plan revealed. The Allies lose 1 victory point. That is if that is the card selected. But that's the first card of the turn for the Paraguayans, because here in Riachuelo that wasn't worth a card, and São Nicolás either. So that's the end of the combat phase. Yeah, Paraguayans fired first. Yeah, got it. Okay, so that's the end of the combat phase, and we now go to the maintenance phase, and the Paraguayans receive 1 additional card. Felipe Varela's Manifesto. The Paraguayan player places 2 Federales special units on any empty space in Entre Rios. This is a great event because Entre Rios is where all the action is happening right now, and there's plenty of empty spaces there in Entre Rios. So this is going to be probably the event card. So now we add up the events, the victory points. It's 3 victory points. This one's worth 2, British plan revealed. So we add 3 victory points to the Paraguayan score. It's they had 7. So now the score is 10 victory points. And here we see. So it's 10-7. And now the Paraguayans will choose Felipe Varela's Manifesto, and we pick 2 Federales special units and place on any empty space in Entre Rios. So this will be the card in use. Play it here, place it here. Now we're going to pick the 2 Federales units. See them there. They're weak cavalry units, but I mean, cavalry is cavalry. You can move 3 spaces, so it's always good to have. And now we can place them in any empty space in Entre Rios. I want to make sure we don't place them in the lion's mouth. So there's any empty space in Entre Rios. Where does Entre Rios reaches up to here, up to Yatay? So by placing them in Yatay, they gain an extra card, and that's what they will do. Any empty space in Entre Rios, place them here, and now the Paraguayans win an extra card, but what's going to happen is that you don't score this card until the next turn, so it will stay in the Paraguayan's hand, and this is the Paraguay player places a Caballeria special unit in Rosario controlled by Paraguay. Okay, so this will be in the Paraguayan hand, and in the 3rd Paraguayan turn, that card can be scored. So that's the special reinforcement, and now we do the reinforcements for the Paraguayans. So let's go to the reinforcements, the reserve pool here. Paraguayans gonna bring at least 1 cavalry and 1 infantry. So let's place the cavalry in Cerro León, which is here, and we'll place the infantry in Asunción, which we can ferry it. Now we remove this marker. That's the unit that used naval movement. And that's the end of the second Paraguayan turn. And we remove this marker. That unit also used riverine movement. So the Paraguayans are in really good shape. And it seems that now all the pressure's on the Allies. Their Brazilian army got mauled at Uruguayana. The Argentinians are trying to scrap up an army. And now we move on to the third turn. Okay, question, Raider fan. What value is the militia units with a combat value of 0? Yes, those units can only just absorb losses. They can't attack. So if, let's suppose I attack a space and it has 3 regular units and 3 militia units. If I want to conquer that space, I got to eliminate them. So I got to stay there more time. So that's what the militia units with a strength of 0, they just take hits. So let's go now to the third turn, and we start with the Allies, and we start with naval movement, the transport. And the Allies have their army here at Montevideo, which can actually do something. We could send some of its units to join the Argentines here to stop that Paraguayan army that is coming down the Paraná River. Now, how many units does this Brazilian army have? It just has 3 units. And one thing I didn't do that I should have done, this unit could have moved. Yeah. Is this connected? No. This unit could have moved to Buenos Aires last turn, and it would have been game over. So what I'll do is, well, where's the Brazilians had a unit there. Oh, it was this unit, the Buenos Aires garrison. Yeah, but this unit just participated in the battle, right? Yeah. Boy, that was a mistake. Well, but it was a mistake on 2 sides. I didn't move the Paraguayan unit, and so now the Argentines will have a unit there. What I'll move the Brazilians using naval movement, and they'll reach here, Goya, or maybe here, because these guys can come in this way. So let's move them here. We still have one more Brazilian unit here in Montevideo, and it could move here. We'll move it there. So all these units cannot move because they used naval movement. Okay. See any other naval movement? I don't think so, because none of the other units are in rivers or coastal spaces. Now we have regular movement for the Allies, and the Allies need to form an army quick. The situation here's this army has a free move, but it'll only be able to move 2 spaces into São Borja. São Borja is going to be lost. So the Brazilians are just going to concentrate their forces to see if they can stop. Is this connected? Santana? I wonder if it's connected. I don't think so. Doesn't look like. Nope. So this is a weak flank they have there. Okay, so let's move the Brazilian units. Move this cavalry unit. Can move 3 spaces. So 2, 3. So make them fight for São Borja. This unit will move here. That's the Allied movement in the Rio Grande do Sul front. And now we have Mato Grosso. I think I didn't bring the I think I didn't bring the Allied reinforcements in the last turn. You know why? Because there's supposed to be one here. So I'll do that again. Okay, let's bring the reinforcements that the Brazilians had to bring in the last turn. They have to go there. So place a unit here. They're supposed to have a unit there. And they're supposed to have 2 units down here as reinforcements. So I'll place one here and another one here. And now we're supposed to be able to move those units. This can move 3 and this can move 2. Yeah, I was thinking the Allies have too few troops. And here we have this situation where the Allies will move to Albuquerque, and at the end of the turn, if I remember, they'll receive reinforcements again, so they'll stay put there. There's no battles on the Allied side, no combat. So now we go to the maintenance phase, and we pick a card for the Allies. Drago Expedition to Mato Grosso. The Allied player places 2 Cazadores special units on any empty space in Mato Grosso. This really comes in handy. So now we score the events in the cards. So it's going to be just this card, 1 victory point. And that will increase the Allied score to 8. And now we play this card as the event. 2 Cazadores special units on any empty space in Mato Grosso. So let's search for the 2 Cazadores units. There they are. In any empty space in Mato Grosso. So here we see Mato Grosso. We could put one here, but it would be wiped out by the Paraguayans in the next turn. Do we want to do that, or do we want to entice the Paraguayans to attack here? Probably entice them to attack here. So it has to be an empty space. Let's place one here. And another one here. Okay. And now we receive the reinforcements for the Allies. So we pick the reinforcements. So let's pick a 3-unit infantry and 2 2-strength cavalry units. And let's place the 2 units in Porto Alegre. We'll place the cavalry unit and the 3-strength infantry unit there. And we'll place the other cavalry unit here in Cuiabá. That's the end of the Allied 3rd turn. And now we move on to the 4th turn, to the Paraguayan 3rd turn. We remove these units that move through as naval movement. But we can see how things are developing. Paraguayans have momentum, but the Allies always have reinforcements flowing. So the important thing for the Paraguayans is to keep momentum and keep destroying units at a greater pace than what the Allies can bring by way of reinforcements. So now we move on to the Paraguayan 3rd turn. This is going to be the last turn of this demo. So we start with the transport phase. So let's see which units are going to use naval transport. The Paraguayans have their unit in Asunción. We're going to move that unit south using naval transport. So it's going to move down to, going to move it down here to Corrientes. So this unit here, Asunción, moves all the way south to Corrientes, and it used naval movement, or riverine movement. So we place a pawn there to remind us. And another thing that is good for the Paraguayans is that this river line is open. So they could move units through that river line, but the Brazilians never know. They may cut that river line. But where do the Paraguayans really want to go this turn? Do they want to have another shot at this army? This army has 2 full-strength units, has 4 units. Paraguayans have 4 units also, but no reinforcements in sight. No units will be able to reinforce. So if they halt the march, they can bring 2 more units here, but they would halt the march and the Brazilians would stack up. Well, not really. The Paraguayans have these units that can join. So that's an interesting situation here. Okay, so let's start by moving the army in Uruguayana here to Alegrete. So there's going to be a battle there. There's 4 units, so they can bring 2 more units into the battle. And these guys can't make it there because it's 1, 2, 3, but these can. So Yatay is in Paraguayan hands because of that special reinforcement. So we're going to move both units, 1, 2, and 3. So they join in the battle at Uruguayana. Okay. And that's going to use one of our leaders. Now let's see what this army here. This army here is not very strong, the one at Riachuelo, and it's advancing down a river, so the defenders will always fire first. They already have 1 loss. They have 3 units. But the Argentines are in worse shape than they are. They have 2 weak units there. And it's a slog, but they'll have to do it. So we will move the army here under Caballero into Goya. So that will be another battle there. So let's see what else. Paraguayans have to bring units up. They have 3 units here, so they can move at least 1 unit into Riachuelo. And the other 2 units into Uruguayana. Let's see here. Yep. Now we got to take care of that cavalry here. Keep an eye on that cavalry. Yes. Okay, they're going to bring 1 unit here at Uruguayana. And this other unit, the cavalry could be attacked by, yeah, this other units also will go to Uruguayana. So there you go. So we still have Lopez Solano's army. That army should be reinforced soon because he's taking some chances with it. And, so now we're going to move Lopez Solano's army into São Luis, and it will attack São Borja. Oh, and I have this spare Brazilian leader who was in Montevideo. So I'm going to return him to the display over here because the Allies didn't make any attacks in the other turn. So that's all the movement in that area. And we still have a situation here. Okay, we will move this cavalry unit here into San Jose. Maybe in the next turn we will attack. And in Mato Grosso, we won't have a chance to attack because we're going to use our 3 attacks in the south. Mato Grosso seems it's going to be a tough cookie to crack, especially with those cazadores showing up lately. So we will concentrate on the attacks in the south. Let's resolve the battle in Sao Borja. So let's place the units on the display. We have the sole cavalry unit there, and here is we're taking a chance here with Lopez Solano, and just 2 units attacking Sao Borja is worth a card. So let's see, let me connect the battery here just a second. Okay. Taking a chance there with the, okay. So here we go. This attack was through a river. So both sides fire at the same time. So we roll for the 2 top units. The Paraguayan needs a 2. The Brazilians, which is a green die, they need also 2 or less. So here we go. And both miss. And now the Paraguayans here fire at the Brazilians. They need 3 or less. And they both miss. So that's the first round of combat. The attackers are the Paraguayans. Boy. Well, let's go again. And fire simultaneously. The first 2 units, the Paraguayans will stay. And the Brazilians are going to stay too. Okay, so here we go. A 2 for the Paraguayans and a 2 for the Brazilians. I rolled a blue die, but it doesn't matter. Oh, the Paraguayans scored a hit on the Brazilians. And now the other Paraguayan unit can roll. 3 or less is a hit. And that's a miss. Okay, so now we go to the 3rd round. The Paraguayans will stay, but the Brazilians will leave. So they have to retreat now from Sao Borja. So we place the Paraguayans here. We have the situation, they have to retreat. This space is friendly. This is not in control of Paraguay yet. They could retreat here and be a pest, or they could retreat into Pinal. They will retreat into Pinal here. And now the Paraguayans won a card. So we place the control marker, and let's flip a card for the Paraguayans. See, what is it? Blanco's Uprising. The Paraguayan player places the Blanco special unit on any empty space in Uruguay. Boy. So that's a possible event. And that's the end of the combat phase there. We have the battle here at Alegrete, but before, we'll resolve the battle here at Goya. There's not a walkover because here the Argentinians will fire first because the attack was across a main river space. So we have the Argentinians set up. Okay, so we have it set up now. The Argentinians fire first. So we go with the top unit. It needs a 1. Oh, 2. No. The other unit needs a 1 too, the cavalry unit. And it's a 3, so nothing. And now the Uruguayans fire. We have the top unit, needs a 1. Misses. The second unit needs a 2 or less. That doesn't count. So. And that's a 6, and that's a miss. The third unit needs a 3 or less. And it'll fire the top unit, that's a miss. So that's the end of the first round, and it's all misses, and that's the Paraguayans are attacking, so they decide whether they will go for a second round, and they have to. So here we go. Oh, wait, that was, yeah. Paraguayans will stay, but the Argentinians fire first. So here we go. We have the Argentinians. They need a 1, top unit. Ooh, 4. The other unit needs a 1. And it's a 2, so that's a miss. So now come the Paraguayans. Top unit needs a 1. It's a 2, miss. The second unit needs a 2 or less. That's a 3, a miss. And the third unit needs a 3 or less. And that's a hit on this unit, so that unit is eliminated. So now the attackers have to decide if they're going to stay. The Paraguayans will stay. Now the Argentinians have to decide whether they will stay, and they will retreat. So that's the end of that battle there. And that battle is here in Goya. So let's place the units back. Surviving Argentinian cavalry and the 3 Paraguayan units. Okay. Now the Argentines have to retreat, and they will retreat into Paraná, where they join 2 Brazilian units there. And the Paraguayans have won that space, but that space does not give them any cards. So now we move to the battle here at Alegrete. That space is not worth any points, but this is a contested, this will be a contest. And let's mark the space here, Alegrete. And note that the space has a brown line. So the Paraguayans will be firing first. So let's set up the allies here. Allies have 4 units. So we've set up the allies. And we set up the Paraguayans. So we'll match those. Okay. It's going to be a kind of a major battle compared to the other ones. So we start with the Paraguayans, the top unit, 2 or less to hit across the reduced Brazilian unit. 2 or less, and the roll is a 4. That's a miss. Now the second unit needs 2 or less for a hit. Roll is a 3, also a miss. Now we go for the first of the Federales units. Needs a 1 though. 3, that's a miss. The next Federales needs a 1. That's also a miss. Now the 3 strength unit will fire, at the top Brazilian unit with a reduced strength of 2. So here we go. And misses. Oh boy. And now we have the last Paraguayan unit with a strength of 1 will fire at that top Brazilian unit with a strength of 2, which is reduced. So a 1 is needed, and no. So now it's the first round for the Brazilians, the allies. Well, it's all completely Brazilian force. So now their first unit at top needs 2 or less for a hit, and the roll is a 6. That's a miss. The next Brazilian unit needs 2 or less, the full strength unit. That's also a miss. Now the reduced unit needs a 1 to hit, and that's a miss. And now the full strength 3 strength unit needs 3 or less, and it gets a hit, so it reduces the Federales unit here. And the Federales unit is eliminated because it's only a 1-step unit. So there goes that. And now the Paraguayans, who are the attackers, have to decide what they're going to do, and they'll stay. They'll stay at least one more round. So here we go. The top unit will fire across. Oh, I'm not showing here here we go. The top unit will fire across, needs a 2 or less, and scores a hit and eliminates the top Brazilian unit. This Brazilian unit was a 3, so it's gone, and it will be missed. So now the next unit, the one in the second in the number 2 box, fires across at the Brazilian full strength unit, needs a 2 or less, and that's a miss. Now the sole Federales unit fires. The reduced Brazilian unit needs a 1. That's a 2. Nobody fires from the 4 box, but this unit can fire. It will fire at the 3 strength unit, and it needs 3 or less. And that's a 3, so that scores a hit. That's valuable because that unit is strong. So that Brazilian unit is now at 2. And this unit needs a 1, and it will fire at this reduced Brazilian unit. It needs a 1. Here we go. And it's a 6. It's a miss. So now the allies can choose to stay or leave. So what do they want to do? They want to leave, keep on retreating. I think they're going to take a pounding if they stay one more round there. So those Brazilian units will retreat at this time. So we'll place them back on the map. This is the battle at, where is it here? Okay, we're at Alegrete there. So let's place the defending units. Defending units go here. Now we place the victorious Paraguayan units. And those units take Alegrete. So here we see. Now the Brazilian units have to retreat. They could retreat into, actually, they have to retreat into Cacequi because there's no connection to Santana do Livramento. So they have to retreat into Cacequi. And the Paraguayans just captured Alegrete. And we'll place a Paraguayan control marker there. There you go. And that's the end of the combat phase for the Paraguayans. Now let's We go to the maintenance phase. They flip a card from their deck, and Emperor Pedro II summons his council. The allied player may not use one of their Brazilian leaders this turn. So that's a possible event. So now we total up the number of victory points. 2 victory points for the Paraguayans. So we add those to the score that we have here. And now the Paraguayans have a total of 12 victory points. And now we have to choose an event. So let's see here. Okay, let's say that the allied player may not use one of their Brazilian leaders. So that's the event it's going to be chosen for the next turn. We place it here in use box, and the card discarded goes here. And then, of course, the Paraguayans would receive reinforcements, and I would just pick a cavalry unit and an infantry unit and place them there. And that's the end of turn 3. And when you see the situation, it's very interesting. The Paraguayans still have momentum. They've been reducing allied units. I don't think at the rate that they need. They haven't destroyed what they have to in order to keep going. I think they're a little short on that. But it's interesting because the Brazilians are trying to make up an army here, and they've still gotten beaten. But you see, there's a lot of units on their way, and the Paraguayans are starting to suffer the effects of attrition. Some of their units have gotten reduced. Here we see in the Entre Rios front, looks pretty wide open to Buenos Aires. So this is turn 3, La Guerra de la Triple Alianza. It's a game designed by Pedro Iñaki Martinez, and it's a game that I enjoy, and I think it's a good game to bring new people into the hobby. It's interesting. You got interesting events happening, and we still have many cards to go here. For example, in the Brazilian deck, there's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 cards. So this video takes some time because I'm going slow, but this is a fast-moving game. And you can see the rules are simple, interesting situation. So I hope that the video has given you a good idea of the flow of the game and what the game has to offer. And as soon as I know where this game can be bought in the United States, because I know they're moving in that direction, there's movement in that direction, as soon as it's official, I'll let you guys know in the channel. So I hope you enjoyed this 3-turn demo. And as I always say, this is Stuka Joe signing off for now. Thanks for watching.